the opposite happening of, like, it's okay, that's, you can't say this stuff. No, you can't say that. Shit. Hi guys, today I want to talk about a topic that is so complicated to talk about, so delicate to talk about, that I postponed talking about it for the whole day. I've been not looking forward to making this video, but I think it's very important that we take a moment of our time to think about this. So what I want to do today is talk about finding nuance in debates in society. Whether we're talking about racism or gender inequality or gay rights or LGBTQIA rights, or it doesn't matter. Whatever movement for whichever minority, the idea is the same. I think when you express your opinion, that is fine. I think when you inhibit other groups of people from expressing their opinion, I think you've gone too far as a movement. As a white privileged male, I'm about the last person to have the right to speak about these topics, which is exactly the reason why I want to make a video speaking about these topics. There's actually quite an interesting book written by Douglas Murray, and it's called The Madness of Crowds. And it's about gender, race and identity, and how we perhaps have gone a little bit too far on certain topics. Where we began fighting for equality, we right now inhibit other people from expressing their opinions and their feelings.
Women's rights. Again, I'm quoting The Madness of Crowds. Women's rights had been steadily accumulating throughout the 20th century. They appeared to be arriving at some sort of settlement. Then, just as the train appeared to be reaching the desired destination, it went crashing off the tracks, close quote. Explain that. This is the case. You mentioned that, we'll come to this, but you mentioned in each instance, the question of rights seemed to be getting someplace
Yes.
Generally agreed upon, and then.
Yes, that's right. Take feminism. Like all of the cases I write about, and there's a perfectly reasonable, indeed almost impossible to disagree with foundational basis, which is we would like to make sure that no woman is ever held back from attaining what she can achieve in her life and decides to do by dint of the fact that she happens to be a woman. Feminism starts from that standpoint of equality, equal rights for women, equal opportunities for women, the right to make their own choices. This exists through first, second wave feminism. Second wave feminism, there's a bit of a problem as man-hating or misandry starts to creep in. There are already people in second wave feminism saying things like, we don't need men. And that goes on in the 70s, but it's kind of fringe. By third and now fourth wave feminism, this just exacerbates beyond any reasonability to the stage we're now at, where fourth wave feminism actually clearly is not seeking consensus. There's a new book out in France that's been making a fair amount of noise that says at the opening how much the female author, loves hating men and how much she loves making them feel terrible and has contempt for them. This isn't a movement at this stage seeking to find agreement or compromise or any kind of equitable arrangements between the sexes. It isn't seeking to make sure that women aren't held back from achievements. It's seeking to try to carry out an act of historic revenge, which the perpetrators believe will in some way make up for what they perceive correctly, as it turns out, to have been lesser opportunities in the past for women. It's a common thing in all of these rights claims at the moment. There seems to be, if this is equality, and this was a situation in the past at various points, say for women, the desire of these groups seems to be, let's go way past equality. Let's make men feel awful. Let's talk about them in horrible terms. And then maybe at some point it'll come back like this. And I think these people are woefully misguided if they've given it even that much thought. They want to carry out acts of revenge. That's why we have attacks on masculinity as well as men. Masculinity is the problem. Never femininity, only masculinity. They say that masculinity always goes wrong, and so on and so forth. And this is a concerted campaign. It doesn't seek for equality, it seeks revenge.
Civil rights, the madness of crowds again. The civil rights movement in America, again the pattern, the civil rights movement in America looked like it was moving towards some sort of hoped for resolution. But yet again, near the point of victory, everything went sour.
Yes, would we ever have expected, I think, even if we've spoken a few years ago, that in our lifetimes, every bookshop in America would be filled with this moral effluence from people pretending that they're anti-racist, simply spewing racism out into the American public system, spewing out hatred of people because of their skin color, generalizing exactly the sin that people were meant to be guilty of some years ago, but generalizing with abandon about everyone who's white, saying that white history is only one thing, that white people are only one thing, that white people can't be differentiated or any moral differences made, but are all guilty and equally reprehensible and need to be beaten up upon. This is, once again, I'm thinking of Ibram Kendi, I'm thinking of Ta-Nehisi Coates, I'm thinking of Robin DiAngelo, I'm thinking of the growing list of race hucksters of all different races who've decided to make themselves rich and famous by attacking a racial group by dint of their racial origin. They seem to think that this, again, is, if there has been inequality in the past, and once again there has, the way to get to equality is not to settle at equal, but to go to better, that black people are better, more virtuous, more morally wise than white people, have a better history, indeed have no sin in their own history, and on, so that at some point it'll come back to this lovely point of equality. Again, I don't know if they've really thought it through all that much. They're certainly wanting to behave like the fourth wave feminists in the tone of vengeance. My own suspicion, once again, is that what happens at the end of this race baiting is not that we swing back to something like equality.
Gay rights, the third of the four. Again, I'm quoting you, Douglas. A decade ago, almost nobody was supportive of gay marriage. Even gay rights groups weren't in favor of it. A few years down the road, gay marriage, has been made into a foundational value of modern liberalism. How did this happen?
Yes, I mean,
same kind of pattern.
Same pattern. Gays, by the way, this is, as you know, the one sort of crampon on the mountain of social justice that I can claim to have ownership of. Gays haven't been very good in victory, actually, I think. Having got all of the equal rights in a society like my own, the United Kingdom and in the US, for instance, are not expressing the tolerance to others that we sought ourselves when seeking equal rights, have gone into, for instance, a strange vengefulness against the religious, having attained, for instance, equal marriage rights in state and civil terms, berate churches, principally churches, of course, they tend to lay off the mosques on this one, but lay into the churches that will not change their teachings about homosexuality because of what is a very recent moral shift, I think a desirable moral shift, but a moral shift in Western liberal societies. And there's something else to that, which is that once again we have this strange oddity that at the point of victory, and again with the gay campaigners as with others, we're dealing with relatively small but very noisy groups of people who have the cultural dominance. I mean, I'm thinking of pathetic legacy gay publications, the pathetic figures who hold themselves out as gay leaders, basically people who've not got any better job to do and wouldn't be employable in any other sector, who hold themselves out at this point as carrying out a sort of act of revenge they do it on the churches, they do it on religious freedom, but they also do it in another way, which is, and I give examples of this, and I'm in agreement with Bret Easton Ellis, somebody I might not ordinarily be in much agreement with. But Bret Easton Ellis gave the example of the interpretation by certain modern gay activists as gay as being not equal or the same as, but slightly better than. And I say in The Madness of Crowds, we've got that in our culture at the moment. We have this sort of strange thing that, to be heterosexual is to be rather disappointing, rather bland. Shame you have nothing to say for yourself. Unlike the magical fairy dust pixie gay people who sprinkle fabulousness and wondrousness everywhere they go and liven up an otherwise benighted heterosexual world. This is once again really the language of better, not of equal.
And so you might wonder, like, where does this come from? Why do we have such a need to emphasize on the differences? Why do we feel so angry when someone makes an argument against something we believe in? Why do we take it so personal? Why is it increasingly polarizing to say something that doesn't align with our belief system? And I think one of the big reasons could be social media. And you might think, well, why social media? Like, what the hell has social media to do with all these discussions? And you see, what I think is that we know that anywhere on this planet there's about 1 million other people that believe exactly the same thing as we do. So instead of communicating with someone we don't agree with, we'd rather scream our opinions on the internet and find people who do believe in these and not focus on the people that disagree with us anymore. And you see, what you're doing basically is you're disconnecting yourself from the reality that is that we live in a society with different opinions and different people, which makes it exciting and beautiful. And we disconnect from this reality and we somehow feel comfortable with this bubble online. With the coming of social media, we've lost the need to engage in meaningful discussions. Recently, I unfollowed an Instagram account, which I've been following for quite a while. And they're a very interesting Instagram account, very informative about climate change. And recently they partnered up with Chicks for Climate, which is fine. But what I don't understand at all is that right now they have begun to launch an attack on masculinity, and that saying things like the climate change and all injustice in the world is caused by toxic masculinity, and that, that the only way to change or the only way to go forward is to empower women. And I'm like, since when did climate change become a gender issue? I mean, climate change is per definition something that touches everyone in society. And so trying to frame like this issue in society as a feminist issue or as a gender issue seems wrong to me, seems incomplete to me. No one is speaking on behalf of the country as a whole. No one is trying to unite everyone and trying to bring everyone together. No, everyone is walking on eggshells, trying to not disrespect this minority or not disrespect that minority. And I feel that we will become completely paralyzed if we keep this trend, because we keep focusing on the differences between us and between people, instead of focusing on what unites us and what brings us together. And especially in times like these, I think it would be so great if we could just focus more on a future for all of us instead of a future for some of us. And so this is why it's a very important topic to me, because I feel this whole movement starts with one thing, and that's nuance. If you are unable to listen to the other side of the conversation, if you are not willing to hear other arguments than the ones in favor for yourself, we will not engage in meaningful debates and discussions anymore about how to organize our society. And I hope by giving you these examples that somehow it's become a bit more clear what the value of trying to interact with one another is, and trying to not focus on the differences, but to really try to connect with one another. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next one, and take care. Bye bye.